Emotional self-regulation under pressure is rare, and it's one of the most valuable qualities an avoidant can encounter, because it speaks directly to what their nervous system fears most: emotional chaos. Most avoidants didn't become avoidant because they love being distant. They became avoidant because closeness, historically, felt unsafe, overwhelming, or unpredictable. For many, emotions were either too much, too messy, or used as weapons. So their nervous system learned a rule: when things get intense, pull away. When someone is upset, shut down. When conflict rises, disappear. That coping strategy becomes automatic, and later in relationships, it looks like coldness. But underneath it is fear: fear of being swallowed, fear of being trapped, fear of being blamed, fear of failing, fear of losing control. That's why self-regulation is so powerful. When you can stay emotionally steady while still being honest, you become the rare person who does not confirm their worst expectations. Most people, when they feel distance, react quickly. They text repeatedly. They ask for reassurance. They demand answers. They accuse. Or they swing between pleading and anger. And the avoidant, already wired to fear emotional intensity, uses that reaction as proof. See, this is why I need space. They retreat further. They detach more. The cycle repeats. But when you are regulated, you break the cycle without trying to control them. Regulation means you don't chase to calm your anxiety. You don't punish with silence to force a response. You don't throw emotional grenades and then call it honesty. You can feel disappointment and still choose calm. You can feel hurt and still speak clearly. You can be triggered and still respond from dignity. That level of control is rare because it requires internal strength, not external validation. For an avoidant, that feels like oxygen. Because a regulated person doesn't demand closeness through pressure. They invite closeness through safety. They don't escalate. They don't threaten. They don't collapse into desperation. They hold their center. And when you hold your center, the avoidant's nervous system has fewer reasons to run. Their usual excuse, it's too much, doesn't work on someone who is calm. Their usual defense, shutting down, becomes more obvious and harder to justify. Your regulation becomes a mirror. It quietly exposes their pattern without you having to fight. This is why avoidants often become drawn to someone who has emotional composure. Not because they want to be controlled, but because they want relief from emotional volatility. Calm becomes a signal of maturity. It signals that you can handle conflict without turning it into war. It signals that you won't punish them with emotional storms. It signals that you can talk like an adult. And that, to an avoidant, is rare safety. But there's an important difference here. Self-regulation is not emotional suppression. It's not being silent while you're dying inside. It's not accepting crumbs with a smile. It's not being cool to keep them. Self-regulation is being honest without becoming frantic. It's being clear without becoming cruel. It's communicating your needs without begging for them to be met. It's being able to say, I care about you, but I need consistency, without chasing them into agreeing. It's being able to step back without drama when someone is not showing up. That's the real power. You can feel deeply and still choose self-respect. A regulated person also doesn't make the avoidant responsible for their emotional stability. That's huge. Many avoidants fear that closeness means being trapped as someone's emotional caretaker. So when you show that you can soothe yourself, that you can take space without punishment, that you can handle discomfort without collapsing, it disarms that fear. It tells them, I'm not here to control you, and I'm not here to be controlled by you either. That balance is rare. And here's why this quality is so valuable to you. It protects your peace regardless of what the avoidant does. If they respond with maturity, your regulation allows healthy repair. If they respond with withdrawal, your regulation keeps you from spiraling. It keeps you from chasing. It keeps you from losing yourself in confusion. It keeps you grounded in reality. That love should not require emotional chaos to be proven. It allows you to see clearly without panic, whether this person can meet you or not. So emotional self-regulation under pressure is not just something avoidants value. It's something that makes you untouchable by inconsistency. It makes you rare, not because you're cold, but because you're steady. And in a world full of reactive relationships, steadiness feels like power. High standards with low drama is one of the rarest combinations an avoidant will ever meet because it creates structure without pressure. Most people, when they love someone avoidant, fall into one of two extremes. They either tolerate too much, staying quiet, accepting crumbs, lowering expectations just to keep the connection alive, or they explode, demanding, chasing, threatening, sending long emotional messages, trying to force clarity. Both extremes are predictable. Both extremes keep the avoidant in control, because the avoidant can either relax into the other person's over-giving, or justify withdrawal by pointing to the other person's intensity. But high standards with low drama breaks that entire system. High standards means you know what you require to stay emotionally safe. You require consistency, respect, basic communication, accountability, and effort. You don't romanticize hot and cold behavior as they're just scared. You don't tolerate disappearing acts. You don't accept vague situationships that keep you anxious. You don't allow someone to return with a simple, "Hey," after disrespect. You don't offer full access to someone who hasn't earned trust. Those are standards, not demands. Standards are about what you will allow in your life, not what you force someone else to do. Low drama means you enforce those standards without chaos. You don't weaponize your emotions. You don't create scenes. You don't punish, provoke, or beg. You don't turn boundaries into lectures. You don't start a courtroom case to prove why you're right. You don't need to win an argument to keep your dignity. You simply state what you need, and if it's not met, you step back. Calmly. Consistently. That calm consistency is what makes the combination so rare. Avoidants often fear relationships because they associate them with pressure, conflict, and emotional unpredictability. Even if you're not that kind of person, their nervous system anticipates it. So when they meet someone who has standards, but doesn't attack them with those standards, it's disarming. It doesn't feel like control, it feels like clarity. It doesn't feel like a trap, it feels like a stable boundary. And stability is something an avoidant craves, even if they fight it. This is why high standards with low drama makes an avoidant pay attention. Because it removes the gray zone. The gray zone is where they usually thrive, that ambiguous space where they can give you enough to keep you hooked, but not enough to require them to fully show up. I care about you, without commitment. I miss you, without consistency. I'm busy, without a plan. Let's see, without direction. In the gray zone, they can keep access while staying protected. But when you have standards, the gray zone becomes uncomfortable. It doesn't work. You don't get pulled into endless decoding. You don't reward vagueness with closeness. You don't chase clarity from someone who refuses to give it. You require adult behavior. And what makes it low drama is that you don't try to force them to meet you. You let them choose. You don't beg, "Please communicate." You say, "I need consistent communication." And then you act accordingly. You don't threaten. "If you don't change, I'm leaving." You simply leave the situation that isn't meeting you. That's why avoidants value it. It doesn't feel like a battle, but it still has weight. It creates consequence without chaos. This combination also reveals character fast. An avoidant who is capable of growth will respect your standards even if they feel uncomfortable. They will try. They will become clearer. They will learn to communicate when overwhelmed instead of disappearing. They will appreciate the structure you bring because it gives them a roadmap. But an avoidant who is committed to avoidance will punish your standards. They'll call you demanding. They'll say you're too much. They'll withdraw to regain control. And your low drama response protects you, because you won't fight for someone who fights your boundaries. You simply step back and let their behavior answer. The biggest reason avoidants value high standards with low drama is that it feels like strength they can't manipulate. If you tolerate everything, they can keep you easily. If you explode, they can dismiss you as unstable. But if you are calm and firm, they can't use either strategy. They can't keep you through breadcrumbs, and they can't escape accountability by blaming your emotions. Your steadiness removes their escape routes. And the deeper truth is this quality isn't just attractive to avoidants. It's the foundation of every healthy relationship, because high standards protect your heart, and low drama protects your peace. Together they make you rare. Not loud, not needy, not cold, just clear. And clarity is the one thing avoidant dynamics can't survive without, because clarity demands a choice: show up with consistency, or lose access to someone who finally knows their worth. Secure detachment without revenge is one of the rarest qualities an avoidant will ever encounter, because it removes the two things they unconsciously rely on to feel and control: your emotional pursuit and your emotional reaction. Avoidants are often used to a predictable script when relationships end or when they pull away. They expect chasing. They expect pleading. They expect anger. They expect jealousy games. They expect dramatic speeches, blocking, unblocking, late-night paragraphs, emotional outbursts, or constant checking. Even if they claim they hate drama, that drama still confirms something for them: that they matter, that they still have influence, that they can still reach you. A reaction, even a negative one, is proof of access. Secure detachment removes access, and that is why it feels so powerful to them. Not because it's cruel, but because it's final. It's the quiet message that says, I can love you and still choose myself. Most people detach with a hidden agenda. They go silent to punish. They post to provoke. They date to make the other person jealous. They try to win the breakup. But secure detachment isn't performance. It isn't strategy. It's a decision rooted in self-respect. It says, I'm not here to teach you a lesson. I'm here to protect my peace. That energy is rare because it doesn't ask for validation. For an avoidant, this is confronting because it removes their favorite safety net: the idea that you'll be there later. Many avoidants keep relationships emotionally unfinished. They leave doors cracked. They maintain loose contact. They hover. They keep the other person emotionally available through breadcrumbs. That way, they can avoid deep intimacy while still having access to comfort. But secure detachment closes the door without slamming it. It doesn't scream. It doesn't fight. It simply stops participating. And when you stop participating, the avoidant is forced to face the true cost of their pattern: not the cost of losing a fight, but the cost of losing access to someone who once made life feel safe. Secure detachment also disrupts the avoidance narrative. In many avoidant dynamics, they cope by telling themselves the other person was too emotional, too demanding, too intense, too needy. That story helps them justify distance. But when you detach calmly, without begging, without rage, without revenge, their story collapses. They can't easily label you as unstable. They can't point to your drama as the reason they needed space. Your calm becomes evidence that the problem was not your emotions, it was their avoidance. That realization can produce guilt and regret. And guilt and regret are uncomfortable feelings avoidants prefer to avoid. So your secure detachment becomes a mirror they can't escape. But here's the most important part. Secure detachment is not the absence of feeling. It's the mastery of feeling. It's you acknowledging pain without letting pain control your behavior. It's you refusing to self-abandon for the sake of connection. It's you not trying to win them back, because you've realized that someone who requires you to suffer for love is not a prize. Secure detachment says, I'm not going to keep proving my worth to someone who keeps questioning it with their actions. That is power. This quality is also rare, because it requires you to let go of the addiction to closure. Many people remain hooked, because they want the avoidant to finally admit what happened, to apologize perfectly, to explain why they did what they did. But secure detachment accepts the hardest truth. Sometimes their behavior is the explanation. Sometimes the pattern is the closure. Sometimes the refusal to repair is the answer. And when you accept that, you stop chasing meaning, and you start choosing peace. Avoidants value secure detachment because it's emotionally sophisticated. It doesn't threaten them. It doesn't chase them. It doesn't punish them. It simply refuses to be controlled. And refusal is what forces reality to settle. If they are capable of growth, your secure detachment can be the moment they finally reflect deeply, because they can no longer rely on your emotional availability to soothe their discomfort. If they are not capable of growth, your secure detachment still saves you, because it prevents you from being pulled back into the same loop. So this keynote isn't about making an avoidant miss you. It's about becoming the kind of person who no longer needs to be missed to feel valuable. And that's why it's rare. Because almost no one can walk away without revenge, without proving a point, without reopening the door. Almost no one can hold love and boundaries at the same time. But when you can, you become unforgettable, not because you played a game, but because you showed what secure love looks like. Love that doesn't beg, love that doesn't chase, love that doesn't punish, love that simply chooses dignity. The fourth keynote is quiet consistency, the kind almost nobody has, because most people only stay consistent when they feel secure. Avoidants, however, don't trust big emotions, big promises, or big speeches. They trust patterns. They trust what repeats. They trust what stays stable when things get uncomfortable. And that's why calm, steady follow through is rare and valuable to them, because it answers the one question their nervous system is always asking. Is this safe, or will this become chaos? Avoidants often grew up learning that connection can switch quickly. One moment someone is close, the next moment they're unpredictable, disappointed, angry, needy, or gone. So they adapt by becoming hyper-sensitive to shifts. They watch for mood swings, pressure, guilt, intensity, and demands. They might not say it out loud, but their body is always scanning. That scanning is exhausting, and it's one reason they pull away, because distance feels like control. So when they meet someone who is consistent, not clingy, not dramatic, not reactive, but steady, it disarms their scanning. It reduces the internal alarm. Consistency is not constant communication. It's not being available 24/7. It's not proving love with obsession. Consistency is being emotionally predictable. It's the ability to say what you mean and mean what you say. It's responding with the same maturity on Monday and Friday, in good moments and tense moments. It's not changing your standards based on their mood. It's not going warm when they chase and cold when they relax. It's not punishing with silence. It's not exploding and then apologizing and calling that passion. It's stability, and stability is rare. For an avoidant, inconsistency feels like danger because it resembles emotional unpredictability. If your energy swings wildly, they will retreat. If you set boundaries one week and abandon them the next, they will stop taking you seriously. If you say you're done but keep returning, they will learn that your words don't have weight. And the truth is, avoidants are extremely sensitive to weight. They may act like they don't care, but they watch. They notice who collapses. They notice who follows through. They notice who stays aligned. And even if they don't reward it immediately, it registers. This is why consistency also includes how you handle distance. Most people respond to distance with panic. They send paragraphs, ask for reassurance, demand clarity right now. Then flip into anger when they don't get it. That emotional whiplash confirms the avoidant's fear. But a consistent person responds differently. They can acknowledge the distance without spiraling. They can say, I understand you need space, but I need a timeline and a return. And then they actually honor that. If the timeline is disrespected, they don't chase. If the return doesn't happen, they don't beg. They simply adjust access. That's consistency. It's not coldness, it's integrity. Integrity is the part most people forget. Integrity is when your boundaries are real. You don't threaten. You don't bluff. You don't say, "I'm leaving," to get attention. You say what you will do, and then you do it quietly. Avoidants value this because it removes the guessing games. They may resist it at first, because it means they can't live in the gray zone, but they respect it because it's solid. It's a ground they can feel under their feet. Consistency also means you don't try to fast forward intimacy. Many avoidants fear being rushed into emotional closeness they can't maintain. So when you move steadily, when you allow things to build, when you don't demand instant vulnerability, it feels safer. But the key is that steady doesn't mean passive. It means you build step by step, with clear expectations and real follow-through. You don't accept crumbs while calling it patience. You don't chase while calling it love. You stay steady while protecting your standards. And here's the most important part. Calm consistency reveals the truth faster than any confrontation ever will. If an avoidant is capable of growth, your steadiness gives them a model. It shows them how to stay present. It shows them how to communicate without drama. It shows them what secure love looks like. If they are not capable of growth, your steadiness exposes them, because they will only show up when it's convenient, and they will pull away when consistency is required, and you will see it clearly without losing yourself in the fog. That's why this quality is rare. Because it requires you to stop being addicted to emotional highs and lows. It requires you to stop proving your worth through intensity. It requires you to trust your standards enough to hold them over time. And when you become that kind of person, you stop being someone an avoidant can keep through mixed signals. You become someone who can only be kept through real effort, real consistency, and real emotional responsibility. One of the rarest qualities an avoidant values, and almost nobody truly has, is a repair mindset without punishment. The ability to address conflict directly, own your part, state your need, and then let the moment end, without dragging it out for days, without turning it into a trial, without using love as leverage. Avoidants are often terrified of emotional conversations, not because they hate closeness, but because they associate conflict with endless pressure, endless explaining, endless disappointment, and no clean way out. Their nervous system hears, "We need to talk," and expects a long emotional storm where they'll be blamed, trapped, or forced to perform feelings they can't access on command. So they shut down early. They disappear. They go cold, not always to be cruel, but to escape the emotional weight they don't know how to carry. A person with a repair mindset feels different. They don't weaponize pain. They don't punish with silence. They don't say, "If you loved me, you would." They don't keep score. They don't bring up 5 old arguments to win the current one. They can be hurt and still be fair. They can be disappointed and still be respectful. They can express a need without threatening abandonment. That combination is rare, because most people either become reactive when they feel unsafe, or they become passive and swallow everything until they explode. Repair mindset looks like emotional containment with honesty. You can say, "When you disappear, I feel unsafe. I need a timeline and a return," without attacking their character. You can say, "That didn't work for me," without humiliating them. You can say, "I'm willing to understand you, but I need consistency," without begging. Then, once the conversation is done, you don't keep punishing them with coldness for the next week. You don't keep opening the wound every night. You let the repair become real by letting it end. That ending is what avoids fear the most, because their biggest nightmare is not conflict. It's conflict that never resolves, conflict that becomes identity, conflict that becomes a permanent emotional debt they can never repay. This is why avoidants secretly value someone who can be direct and then return to calm. Because it teaches their nervous system that intimacy doesn't always lead to emotional imprisonment. It shows them that closeness can include discomfort without becoming chaos. It also shows them something they rarely trust, that you're not trying to control them, you're trying to connect with them. Control feels like pressure. Connection feels like clarity. Most people confuse the two. They push harder when they feel distance, thinking intensity will create closeness. But intensity often creates shutdown. Repair mindset creates closeness by being clear, respectful, and finite. There's another layer to this quality that hits avoidance deeply. You don't use your love as a bargaining chip. You don't say, "I'll be warm again," when you finally act right. You don't play hot and cold to teach them a lesson. You don't use jealousy to get their attention. You don't withhold affection to punish. You simply say what you need and what you'll do if it's not met. That is a rare kind of integrity, because it's not emotional performance, it's emotional maturity. It tells them, "I'm not here to win. I'm here to be real." Repair mindset also includes accountability. And that's where it becomes powerful. Avoidants often expect other people to demand accountability from them, while refusing to take any themselves. So when you can calmly own your part, not in a self-blaming way, but in a grounded way, it shocks them. It removes defensiveness. It lowers the emotional threat. It makes it harder for them to hide behind the idea that you're too much. Because you're showing balance. You're showing self-awareness. You're showing that you can talk like a stable adult. That steadiness invites them out of their armor. But here's the most important truth. A repair mindset isn't a tool to keep an avoidant. It's a standard that protects you. Because if you bring repair energy, and they still refuse to engage, still disappear, still punish, still rewrite history, then you're not dealing with a misunderstanding. You're dealing with someone who isn't ready. And your repair mindset prevents you from becoming bitter or reactive. It keeps you clean. It keeps you clear. It keeps you from turning into someone you don't recognize, just to hold on to someone inconsistent. This is why it's rare. It requires strength to speak without attacking. It requires discipline to not punish. It requires self-respect to set boundaries without drama. And it requires maturity to accept that if someone can't repair, love alone won't save it. Avoidants value this quality because it feels like safety with spine, tenderness with standards, honesty with control. And when someone carries that, it becomes very hard to forget them. Because they didn't just love loudly, they loved wisely.